A few years ago, I worked in a small supermarket, the kind of place that was compact but stocked with everything. During the day, it was calm, almost boring, but at night it felt like a completely different place. On the night shift, there were only 3 of us, Martin, Elias, and me. Sometimes a security guard was hired, but only when the owner decided it was necessary. Most nights, it was just the 3 of us alone in the store. For the first few months, nothing unusual happened. Everything seemed normal. Then, slowly, things began to change. The first strange incidents involved the shopping carts near the entrance. More than once, one of us would walk past the carts and see the one at the front move on its own, sliding forward as if someone invisible had yanked it. It didn't move far, maybe a meter, but it was impossible not to notice. Sometimes we even heard the wheels squeak. Other times we would find carts sitting in the middle of the aisles, even though none of us had moved them. Each of us witnessed this on different nights. It happened to me twice. One time I was walking by to change a trash bag when the cart in front of me rolled forward suddenly, as if pushed by unseen hands. On other nights, we watched from a distance as a cart shifted just a few centimeters in the silent, empty store. We never found an explanation, and it always left us uneasy. The worst experience, however, happened to me close to midnight. I was restocking the dog food aisle, organizing large bags and cans. My co-workers were upstairs in the stockroom, which was reached by a set of metal stairs leading to a long room filled with boxes. As I bent down to place a bag on the bottom shelf, I noticed an elderly woman walking slowly down the aisle. She didn't alarm me at first. I assumed she must have fallen asleep in the bathroom before closing and had just woken up. She walked calmly, her hands clasped in front of her, her gaze fixed on the floor. She wore a gray sweater and a dark skirt. I approached her and spoke softly, telling her that the store was already closed. She didn't respond. She didn't slow down or turn around. Thinking she hadn't heard me, I stepped closer and reached out to touch her shoulder to guide her out. Before I could touch her, she stopped completely. She froze in place. Without moving her body or her feet, her head slowly turned toward me. The movement was wrong, unnatural, as if her head were loose. I couldn't scream or move. Her face was pale, her eyes wide open, her mouth slightly parted, completely expressionless. A wave of cold ran through my entire body. I took a step back, shaking. I blinked, and when I looked again, she was gone. I ran upstairs to the stockroom, trembling, barely able to speak. That night left me broken. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep. I had nightmares and constant anxiety. It took months in therapy before I could feel normal again. After that incident, things grew worse. We began hearing footsteps upstairs when all of us were downstairs. Sometimes it sounded like someone running, other times like slow, dragging steps. There were loud bangs, and once we heard someone crying desperately, begging us not to go upstairs. We always went together after that, never alone. One night, when we needed to bring down cartons of milk, we started up the stairs together. As soon as we stepped onto the metal steps, we heard a groan from above. It turned into a deep, anguished cry. Fear took over us, and we rushed back downstairs. The crying filled the entire store before suddenly stopping, as if someone had turned it off. We never went back up to the warehouse again. For weeks after, the disturbances continued, moving carts, footsteps, falling objects. Eventually, I quit that job. I couldn't endure it anymore. Even now, I still remember that woman exactly as she appeared. I don't know what she was. I don't know if she was a spirit, a shadow, or something darker. I only know that the memory still follows me, and sometimes, so do the nightmares. I prefer to omit my name. All I will say is that I worked at a supermarket called Soriana in 2015 in the cleaning department. From my very first day, the employees who had been there for years told me the same thing. That store was supposedly haunted. Everyone repeated the same story. Years earlier, the building had caught fire and burned almost completely. The blaze was intense, and several people died inside. When the place was rebuilt, it became modern and well lit, but according to longtime workers, strange things started happening soon after. They spoke of shadows moving through the aisles, voices that came from nowhere, and people who appeared briefly in the hallways and then vanished. At first, I thought it was just gossip, the kind of stories people invent about places with a tragic past. But after a few weeks working there, I began to notice things that were difficult to explain. While cleaning the aisles, products would fall off the shelves on their own. They didn't slide or tip over naturally. They fell as if someone had shoved them hard. This happened during the day and at night, sometimes even with customers present. Several customers became frightened and went to the registers to report it. The cashiers simply told them that the store was haunted, as if it were common knowledge. The cashiers had stories of their own. One of them told us that while ringing up a purchase, she suddenly felt someone standing right behind her. She said she felt the weight of a presence and the change in the air. She even saw a silhouette out of the corner of her eye and thought it was a friend approaching. But when she turned around, no one was there. Her friend was still at another register. There were also stories from other employees. One older man said he was washing his hands in the bathroom around 8:30 at night when a man wearing jeans and a white t-shirt walked in. He saw him clearly in the large mirror. The man greeted him, and when he turned around to respond, the stranger was gone. At first, we thought he was mistaken or tired. But days later, a baker described the exact same man and the same experience. He also saw him in the mirror, greeted him, and found no one there when he turned around. Despite all this, I still tried to find logical explanations, reflections, shadows, fatigue, anything. That changed one night during the late shift. The store was closed to the public, but employees stayed behind to clean and reorganize. When the store was empty, the atmosphere felt heavy. The aisles seemed longer, and the silence felt oppressive. Around 11 p.m., I went to the bathroom. The door was closed, as if someone had locked it from the inside. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't move. Before I could try again, I heard a voice. It was a child's voice, maybe 11 or 12 years old. He sounded desperate. He was yelling for help, saying he couldn't get out. I froze. The voice sounded real, as if the child were pressed right against the door. I told him to calm down and said we would help him, but he kept screaming, asking where his parents were and begging to be let out. I ran to get 2 coworkers. The 3 of us tried to force the door, but it wouldn't budge. The boy continued screaming and crying from behind it. More employees gathered as they heard the commotion. Someone went to get a supervisor who had the master key. While we waited, the voice kept repeating the same desperate pleas. When the supervisor arrived, he spoke calmly through the door, asking the boy how he got trapped. The child never answered, only continued screaming. As soon as the key turned in the lock, the screaming stopped instantly. Complete silence. We opened the door. The bathroom was empty. We checked every stall, every corner, the sinks. There was no sign that anyone had been there. We all stood there in silence, terrified. We knew what we had heard. It hadn't been imagination or an echo. It had been the clear voice of a child asking for help. Later, some workers said that during the fire years ago, people had been trapped in the bathrooms. Some believe those voices still remain. Others prefer not to talk about it at all. As for me, that night ended all doubt. There are things that cannot be seen, but they are real. My name is Tadeo. A few years ago, I worked as a security guard at a supermarket called Scorpion. I don't work there anymore, but what happened during those night shifts is something I'll never forget. I had worked security in many places before, but none of them felt like that store. From the first night, the atmosphere was wrong. The store closed late, and once everyone left, only my partner and I remained. By 11 p.m., the aisles were empty, the lights stayed on, and every sound echoed too loudly. That branch had a reputation. People said it was haunted, but I thought it was just stories guards told to scare the new ones. One night, during the early morning hours, we were resting on some thin mattresses the supervisor had left for us. We weren't asleep, just trying to recover from the cold and fatigue. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, clear, steady footsteps moving down the nearest aisle. I opened my eyes, and my coworker was already sitting up, staring toward the shelves. He asked if I had heard it. I told him yes. The footsteps sounded calm, unhurried, as if someone were walking normally through the store. We stood up slowly and followed the sound toward the grocery aisle. As we moved closer, the footsteps faded. The lights were on everywhere, and there were no dark corners. Still, we saw something move. A black silhouette crossed in front of us, passing from one aisle to another. It looked like a person, but it wasn't right. We could only see it from the waist up. It had no legs. The shape moved forward without touching the floor, gliding silently. We froze. The shadow didn't turn toward us. It didn't make a sound. It simply disappeared behind a shelf filled with detergents. When we reached the spot, there was nothing there. No movement, no noise, no explanation. We went back to where we had been resting, both of us shaking. My coworker whispered that the thing didn't have legs. I told him I had seen it too. Neither of us could pretend it hadn't happened. About 20 minutes passed, then we heard the footsteps again, the same rhythm, the same calm pace. We understood immediately. Whatever that thing was, it was the one walking through the aisles. We didn't sleep at all that night. We sat there until morning, tense and silent, waiting for our shift to end. When the next guards arrived, we didn't say anything. We knew they would laugh or think we were imagining things. But we both know what we saw. A shadow without legs walking through the center of the store. My name is Femeraldo, and I am from Santa Catarina, Nuevo León. What I am about to tell still gives me chills every time I remember it. It happened on a night like any other. I had been drinking a few beers with friends on the sidewalk near my house. When it got late, I decided to walk home alone. The streets were empty, and the air felt heavy, as if something were wrong. As I walked, I passed by an abandoned warehouse that I had always avoided. The neighbors said that back in 2010, Los Zetas used that place to torture and kill people. There were also stories about satanic rituals and a pentagram drawn on the cellar floor. I never believed those rumors, but that night something made me stop and look inside. From the darkness, I noticed a faint flickering light. Curiosity got the better of me. The door was slightly open, so I pushed it and went inside. The cellar was filled with dust and cobwebs. The light came from an old lantern on the floor, barely illuminating the room. As soon as I stepped in, I heard a sound behind me, like someone dragging their feet. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. My heart began to race. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it was just the wind. I decided to leave, but before I could, a whisper called my name. Femeraldo. An icy chill ran down my spine. I looked around, but I saw nothing. Suddenly, the light went out, and I was plunged into complete darkness. I tried to find the exit, but it was as if the door had disappeared. The murmurs grew louder, and I felt a presence close to me. A voice whispered again, begging me for help, sounding desperate. I stumbled and fell to the ground. When I tried to get up, my hand touched something cold and damp. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. What I saw made my blood run cold. Lying there was Don Chui, a neighbor who had been taken by paramilitaries years earlier. His face was disfigured, his eyes empty, yet it felt as if he were still watching me. I panicked and looked around for a way out. That was when I noticed a mirror on the wall. In it, I saw my wife's reflection, but she appeared dead, her skin pale and her eyes hollow. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I turned away, only to see another mirror. When I shone the light on it, I saw the reflection of a child dressed in black, his tongue hanging down to the floor. In the center of the cellar, I finally saw the pentagram the neighbors talked about, drawn on the floor with what looked like dried blood. I ran toward where I thought the exit was, but something grabbed my foot. I looked down and saw a burned, skeletal hand gripping me. It was a woman's hand. I pulled with all my strength until it released me. Suddenly, the door appeared again. I ran out, and the moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. I didn't stop running until I reached my house. Since that night, I avoid that place completely. Every time I hear my name whispered, my body freezes with fear. If you ever find yourself in Santa Catarina, stay away from that warehouse. Whatever is inside it is not human, and whatever souls remain there are still waiting for help. At the time this happened, I was 16 years old and lived in a neighborhood on the outskirts of Guadalajara, next to a ravine known as La Experiencia. It was 2020, during the pandemic, when everything stopped and we were confined to our homes. My brother was 17, and like me, he was restless from being locked inside for so long. I had an 18-year-old boyfriend who was adventurous and sometimes reckless. His cousin was dating my cousin, so the five of us were very close. My brother, my cousin, my boyfriend, his cousin, and me. Since we couldn't see each other anymore, my boyfriend suggested that we sneak out one night. I was hesitant, but I agreed on the condition that everyone came along. That night, my cousin stayed over at my house. We waited until my parents and grandmother were asleep, around 11 at night. Once everything was quiet, we slipped out. My brother had left his motorcycle near the garage door, and we didn't start it until we were far enough away not to wake anyone. We met my boyfriend and his cousin at a nearby point, both on motorcycles. From there, we decided to go into the ravine to a place called Las Pilitas del Muerto, natural pools fed by hot springs. We had been there many times before and thought nothing of it. We rode as far as we could and then walked the rest of the way. After swimming and talking for a while, my boyfriend and I moved to a smaller pool downstream. As we sat there, something strange caught our attention. Fireballs were rolling slowly down the walls of the ravine. They weren't falling or being thrown. They moved as if they were alive. I told my boyfriend that they were witches. My grandmother had always said that when she first moved to the area, she used to see fireballs descending into the ravine at night, claiming they came from witches traveling from nearby towns. I had never believed her stories until that moment. My boyfriend tried to calm me, saying it was probably burning trash. But more fireballs appeared, moving slowly on both sides of the ravine. Then, suddenly, one passed incredibly close to us, only a few feet away. It was enormous, wide enough to wrap your arms around. I screamed, and my boyfriend covered my mouth and pulled me under the water. The fireball changed direction and descended lower, hovering above us as if searching. After a moment, it drifted upward again. We surfaced, gasping for air. My boyfriend leaned over the edge of the pool but couldn't see anything. He said it was gone. At that moment, someone grabbed my arm and pulled me forcefully out of the water. I was about to scream again when I recognized my brother's voice telling me to stay quiet. We regrouped with my cousin and her boyfriend, who were hiding nearby. We didn't even have time to get dressed properly. The fireballs that had been deep in the ravine were now rising upward. We grabbed our clothes and ran toward the motorcycles. As we climbed the path, we heard sounds behind us. It sounded like the cawing of a crow, but it ended in laughter. Low, distorted, and unnatural. We didn't look back. When we finally got home, our parents were already awake and furious. My mother said she realized we were gone because she heard my grandmother praying for us in her sleep. She said she had felt something was wrong. To this day, I don't know what those fireballs were. I only know that they weren't normal, and whatever was in that ravine that night did not want us there.